Our next guest is Valerie Rose Yawien. She's an actor, musical theater performer, writer, and Lyme disease advocate. She's also from Brooklyn, New York. She has merged her personal experience with Lyme with her career in the arts, writing the screenplay for the feature film I Have Lyme. She has dedicated herself to raising awareness for this misunderstood illness through her production company and artist collective, Artists Bite Back. And she's committed to breaking the whole stigma. Valerie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So tell me exactly how this dramatic change in your life began. What was it that put you on this journey to be cured from Lyme disease?
Right. So like so many Lyme patients, my story has many chapters and many aspects of the story. So a concise answer to that would be my entire life, I was living a very active life. I was in the performing arts from a very young age, and I was so active and, living in New York City and with my friends and doing all of these things, but I had this other parallel reality that was going on that I knew in my heart something was really wrong. I had chronic fatigue, I had spinal pain, I had, rapid heartbeat, I could never sleep at night, even for when I was a baby. I mean, something just never felt right, but I didn't know what that was. So, that was going on my entire life, but also, like many Lyme patients, I had breaking points that you referred to. So I just kept going, I just kept trucking through. I got my BFA in musical theater for my undergraduate degree. I was working nonstop, but always, like I said, knowing something was wrong. My first major breaking point with Lyme, and still not knowing that it was in fact Lyme that was afflicting me. I was on tour. It was my first major professional job right out of school, and working with the summer stock company and doing 8 shows a week of Hair the Musical and traveling all over. And I woke up and I was paralyzed. And I went into this job and this production ill. But like I said, I just kept doing what I was doing and what I was doing my whole life, because every time I went to a doctor, nobody knew what was going on and nobody had an answer for me. So once that moment happened, I obviously came home to New York City, started seeing doctors. This was in the year 2010, 2011, and that was a whole nother chapter in itself. So, but you hear that a lot with Lyme patients, and even the people who know they have Lyme or they don't know that that's what's going on in their body, that symptoms will come and go in terms of their manifestations. So that's another thing that's really difficult, I think, for the Lyme community and patients of chronic illness and misunderstood illness, how to communicate with your community and your family and friends what's going on with you when you don't even know what's going on yourself.
Do you know how long you had it?
I don't know, and this is something that I have tried to find peace with. So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and actually a lot of my difficulties getting diagnosed, I was going to doctors in New York City and they said, you can't have Lyme because you're from New York City, which we know is so incorrect in so many ways. But looking back, I'm 29 years old now, and looking back, I remember, pre-K, kindergarten, so we're talking 4 or 5 years old, having these headaches, having the spinal pain, not being able to lift my head off the desk, but also still being a really good student. And like I said, still doing all these things. And my parents worked for the airlines, so I was traveling all over the world. So it wasn't like I was bedridden, I just never felt well. So I don't have a moment where, when, or how I got Lyme disease. And like I said, that's something that's very unsettling for a lot of people. But I know that it's been going on for a while, and based upon the severity of my neurological manifestations when I started seeing Lyme literate doctors, 10 years at least. Right. So
that's an interesting phrase, Lyme literate doctors, because the misdiagnosis is very disturbing that you would get from the traditional part of medicine, from your internists or doctors who aren't familiar with this, or the numerous manifestations and subtleties of the disease.
Yeah, it's a really big problem. So besides me going to top New York City doctors after that incident when I was on tour, and them saying to me, you can't have Lyme because of where you're from, which we know, like I said before, is just so not right. I went to top infectious disease doctors, top rheumatologists, and I wasn't, like, knowing me, I'm pretty vocal and pretty communicative, and so I was very clear with doctors. I mean, I came with my list of symptoms, I didn't hide anything. I said, I'm tired all the time, I have joint pain, it's not because I'm dancing full time, it's beyond that, there's something really wrong. And even with being very specific and very clear about what was going on with me, these doctors dismissed me, and not only dismissed me, but many of them said, you don't have Lyme disease. And it leaves the patient in a situation where they have to advocate and research for themselves, which is very difficult.
So how did you find that doctor that found Lyme, and how did it change your life?
Well, it's also a long story. What I would say, just circling around to the end of it before I talk about it, to other Lyme patients, so they know just to keep going, and to, even if you see people who aren't necessarily listening to aspects of your case or aren't hearing you, don't let that discourage you from fighting for your life, because every life is worth it. And it's important to keep going, even when the medical institution, which is put in such a place where it's the pillar, it's what we look up to, they're supposed to have the answers. We're all humans, and sometimes it doesn't work out that way and it's not immediate. So for me, once conventional medicine as a system failed me, I started seeking out Lyme literate medical doctors. The acronym is LLMD, which is pretty well known within the Lyme community. And that is a problem in itself too. We shouldn't be separated from the masses, but doctors have been forced to separate themselves from conventional medical institutions in order to focus on their Lyme patients. So once it became clear through a series of events of my own research combined with other alternative practitioners saying, we really think this is what's going on with you, or you're kind of a clear-cut Lyme case. I don't know why they're dismissing this. This is clearly what it is. I found these specialists, and I saw multiple, like 4 to 5, 6 of them, tried many Lyme-specific treatments and got worse and worse and worse. And actually our previous guest was talking about, even if it's alternative medicine, if you're so sick and your body is so toxic from being untreated for so long, you may not be strong enough to handle the treatments you need. So Lyme patients and autoimmune patients across the board are put in a really difficult spot. The sequencing of treatments is almost as important as the diagnosis itself. So I went through a really difficult phase with that, but at least I had the answer. So I thought, like you have your label and you think, okay, at least I know, like, I'm not insane. At least I know I'm not imagining this. And then, after a while, I found a Lyme-specific doctor that was a match for me. And everybody, a previous guest was saying this as well, everybody's different. The disease manifests itself in different ways in all different types of people. The disease does not discriminate. It's very important to know, too. So you will find your match. It may not be right away, but just keep going. And I just kept doing that. And I feel very lucky to have found someone who values my story and listens. When you work as a team, it's very important too.
You know what I find so impressive is that now you have a movie that you're putting together.
Yeah.
And do you have the energy for that? Is it driven by passion? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So once I found myself out of the real darkness that this experience is for so many, I said, as many of us do, as many Lyme advocates and chronic illness advocates do, I have to give back. I have to, staying silent about my story may feel safer and more comfortable, but it's my obligation and my duty to make sure that I talk about the things that weren't easy and were scary in order to help other people so they know what's going on with themselves, and also so they feel safe to speak out about their own stories. So I would say passion, of course, and my commitment to advocacy and community action, but I am really doing a lot better, and I do have these practitioners who they worked around the clock to save me. So I'm very lucky for that. So I think it's a little bit of both, but the drive is there. I've been working on this project for almost 2 years. I challenged myself as an artist to put this experience into the format of a feature film and tell the story of chronic illness in a way that hasn't been done before. I'm really excited about it.
And it's I Have Lyme?
Yes, I Have Lyme the movie. I Have Lyme, yep.
And how do people learn about it?
So you can go to our website, www.ihavelymethemovie.com. Need the .com part. And Indiegogo, www.indiegogo.com. And while you're on that website, you could search I Have Lyme the movie. And we have a ton of information on the Indiegogo website about the plot of the film, our social justice mission, what we are saying and doing for the Lyme community. And we're just so excited to have everybody on board with us because I wrote the film for us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.